Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 10th concurrent session of INGED 2021. And today we're going to have José Belda-Medina from Spain, and he will be delivering his speech on integrating augmented reality in language learning, an analysis of pre-service teachers' competence using the TPACK framework. You have 20 minutes for presentation. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Neil. Very good. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you online, wherever you are. My name is José Belda-Medina, and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Alicante in Spain. I'm currently teaching applied linguistics. And this presentation is entitled Integrating Augmented Reality in Language Learning and Analysis of Pre-Service Teachers' Competence using the TPACK framework. Hope it just works. There you go, just ahead of, okay, there you go, it's slow here. Okay, so, there's today, augmented reality is considered to be one of the emerging technologies. And there are different definitions about this, but I just wanted to include one of them, which is it's an interactive technology that combines the physical world with computer-generated elements in real time, providing an enhanced immersive experience with superimposed digital content, such as 3D images, sound, text, etc. Traditionally, there are three different types of augmented reality technologies. One is marker-based, the other one is markerless, and there's the location-based or GPS. But some authors just reduce them to two, vision-based and location-based. There's an increasing use of augmented reality in education for different reasons. The first one is obviously the emergence of what we call the SDKs, the software development kits or offering tools that you can create your own augmented reality lessons. Also, there is an upsurge, there's an increase of augmented reality wearables, such as smart glasses, smart jackets, and so on. And of course, the pervasiveness of portable devices, particularly smartphones and tablets that we can find everywhere. There's three different theories about the integration of augmented reality in the EFL classroom. One is constructivism, the other one is situated learning, and the third one is connectivism. And I'm sorry, I don't really have time just to focus on this, but this will be one of the major problems with the research participants, as you will see. Okay, but those are the three different theories, pedagogical theories, that are mostly used for the integration of augmented reality in the classroom. Okay. Now, as regards to augmented reality, there are different affordances and limitations. And again, I don't really have time to cover all of them because I would like to share the research with you. But I will just mention some of them. I'll highlight some of them. For example, among the affordances, we can mention, for example, immersion, representation, just a reduced cognitive load. So augmented reality can be very useful for spatial and abstract concepts, for example, problem solving, and also and especially gamification, the increased interest and enjoyment, engagement, motivation, and so forth. And among the limitations, I divided them into technical and pedagogical. The technical, we can find lack of availability of augmented reality educational tools, lack of electronic devices, of course, poor connectivity, image recognition, technological problems. And among the pedagogical problems, we may find lack of digital skills and adequate training of educators, negative attitude, concern, and so on, lack of pedagogical models, and so on. Well, there's three different hypotheses in this research. The first one is this presentation. The first one is pre-service teachers have the technological skills to create their lessons. And I just wanted to enhance create. This is not using augmented reality as content recipients, it's actually as content creators. So again, pre-service teachers have the technological skills to create their lessons aimed at teaching English to children. In a clear classroom. In this case was the content, language, and integrated learning classroom. The second is pre-service teachers have the pedagogical skills to integrate their lessons in the English language classroom. So the first one is technological, the second one is pedagogical skills, and the third one is pre-service teachers have a positive attitude toward the use of augmented reality in the classroom. Okay, so those are the three main hypotheses. And then I use the TPACK framework you can see here, and I'm sure that you're familiar with this framework, which has been used in different works. Basically, the TPACK framework combines three different constructs, three different dimensions. Ideally, the teacher today should have a combination of those three different skills: content knowledge, in this case was CLIL, and EFL, English as a foreign language. The second was pedagogical knowledge. That was the teaching methods. And the third one is technological knowledge. And in this case was augmented reality. And there's the intersections. There's three different sections, and then we have the different intersections. Okay, so that's the model that I used. As regards the context, you can see here that this experiment was carried out at the University of Alicante. That was my classes where I teach in Spain. The students, you can see some screenshots here. They were in the third year of subject in English studies. There's actually the class that I teach, which is applied linguistics. And this was a 2-year-long research. So you will see some of the screenshots that some of them were pre-COVID. That was just right before the COVID. And some of them where the lessons took place online. As you can see, this one here, this image here. Okay, so that was just a 2-year-long research. Total, there were like 2 different groups, 92 students, but 85 of them just completed all the tasks, as you will see. And the class ran for 4 months. The corresponding level of the students was a B1 level, so it was an upper intermediate. Some of them were even native speakers living in this area. And the theory was combined with ICT-based projects, and the methodology was a combination of project-based learning and task-based language teaching. And you can see, as regards to gender distribution, that 81% of the participants were female students, and 19% of them were male students. Okay, the 85 participants that completed all the tasks, you can see that they were administered, they were given a pre-test and a post-test. The pre-test contained 3 different sections. The first one was socio-demographic information. Then the second was previous knowledge of augmented reality, and the third was about a previous experience with augmented reality. And the post-test, that was after the experiment, which they needed to create an augmented reality lesson aimed at teaching English to children in a clear classroom. So the post-test contained the TPACK framework, different questions, which I'll share the results with you later. And the ARAS scale, that was just to measure the students' attitudes toward augmented reality. Okay, and there was like the final project evaluation. Okay, these are the research stages. So this covered 12 2-hour sessions, and we went from 1, as you can see here, that was the project overview. Second was choosing a topic. So the students were required to choose a topic, and they were free to choose any topic they wanted, but was related, obviously, with the target students and the level that they were going to prepare the lesson for. So they could use, for example, about biodiversity, sciences, history, art, and so on. So they could choose any topic. Then the third was about authoring tool. That was a training session, how to use augmented reality with the SDKs, software development kits. That was 2 sessions. Then number 4, that was the multimedia and content selection. They needed to choose select the different triggers and overlays for the project. Then number 5 was project development. That was 3 sessions, and I was just supervising all of them in the classroom. Then number 6 was the project implementation at school with real children. So they had a chance just to use their augmented reality lesson, just go to some school and use it with children. And finally, there was a project presentation in class and class discussion in this case. Okay, so the students, the participants were provided, as you can see, with different instructions. So there was the objectives, the keywords, the procedure, the rubric, everything. So they knew what they had to do at every different stage, as you can see here. And this is also one example of the project description that I just provided to them, with everything was scaffolded. So there was a step-by-step procedure. As you can see here, the lesson plans, first, second, third, fourth, and so on. So they needed to follow the instructions. And I was just supervising project development in the classroom. And I also recommended some of the tools that you can see here on the screen, and some examples of augmented reality from previous years. So these are the pre-test results. So you can see here in this case, the first one on top, that students, most of them had some experience with augmented reality, but they use the smartphones. So they use the smartphones basically, and some of them use the smart glasses, as you can see, but basically smartphones. As regards augmented reality in video games, you can see that 59% of them, they said no, they never used augmented reality in video games. 41% of them, they said yes. And of course, those video games that use augmented reality, most of them, they said that they knew Pokemon Go. Some of them said Resident Evil, IP, Invisimal, Star Wars, Battlefront, and so on, Harry Potter, the augmented reality version. So you can see that some of them had been exposed before, but they had been exposed always as AR, augmented reality users, not as content creators. So that was the first time for all of them that they were going to create their own lesson. And you can see here in terms of terminology, and that was a previous experience, And most of them, again, their knowledge was very low. So they didn't know most of the concepts like trigger, overlay, extended tracking, markerless, marker-based in blue colors. So you see that was just a first a new experience for them. And now I just wanted to share with you some of the results of the augmented reality. Now, again, this is pre-COVID, so that was just before the year before COVID. Just remember that was a 2-year long research. So you can see some of the students that was in our classroom, my classroom, that when they were creating different projects, some of them were about emotions, and these were addressed to children. So some of them were about music instruments, Olympics, emotions, the planets, the solar system. That was number 5. It's actually one of the tools, which is called Augmented, and how they were creating the project, different types of projects. Number 6, they used QR codes. Number 7 was about European monuments, for example. Number 8 and 9, they used different costumes. So you can see some of them were about sports. Number 8 and 9, they were explaining the digestive system. That was number 9. So they used a costume just to explain the digestive system to children. And number 10, you can see a screenshot of my students implementing the lesson with children. And this case was about farm animals, as you can see here. Okay. Now this is a video that was last year. It's actually yes, that was last year with the COVID. And we had the online lessons, of course, but they just created a video with augmented reality and they shared that. So I would like just to play 1 or 2 minutes, and you can see that was the online lessons with my students, and you can see some of these projects. You can actually see that was just one example that I recorded with my students. That was one of the projects that they created about water cycle. Positive results you can see here. The first one is about the you see the different tools that they used. The SDK software development kits. So some of them use Aurora, Augmented, Secret Works, and so on. Some of those that I recommended. Time needed to create their AR lesson was, and on average, was between 10 and 15 hours, which is actually quite, but that was the first experience for them, just creating an AR lesson. So that was between 10 and 15 hours or even more, like 50 to 20 hours. As regards the level of difficulty, most of them they said that just as you can see, the technological issues like number 3 and 4, using the AR tool to create the project was probably the most challenging aspect in this project. That was on 5-point Likert scale, so 5 was very difficult. And finally, level of satisfaction, they were moderately satisfied with the project, especially with the result. As you can see, number 10, the augmented reality visual design, the project result, they were quite satisfied in this case. As regards the attitudes, remember that I mentioned that we were going to measure the student attitudes, and I used the RS scale. It's the attitudes toward the augmented reality in foreign language learning, and that was divided into 4 different dimensions: relevance, satisfaction, reliability, and beliefs. And I just highlighted some of them, so you can see in terms of relevance. Oh, yes, and there was like some of them have an asterisk, just with reverse coding to avoid what we call the acquiescence bias in subversive studies, just to avoid that. So they had a reverse coding. So you can see here with those with an asterisk, those items with an asterisk. So you can see in relevance, for example, the first section that they said the AR applications of 3D objects provide a feeling of reality. That was the immersive experience. So that was something that they just appreciated. The second, in terms of satisfaction, you can see item number 11, demonstration of 3D objects, video than animation with augmented reality increases my curiosity. Reliability, number 19, this activity with AIR makes me develop other cognitive skills like analysis, synthesis, critical thinking, because they were actually creating their AIR lessons. And finally, beliefs. I think that augmented reality will increase in education over the next years. And most of them just say yes. And that was the results for the TPACK framework. And remember that we used the TPACK framework that was divided into 3 different sections, 3 different dimensions: content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge. And those are the means for each of the sections. I'll just show you the breakdown of those different items. But you see the means here for content knowledge. The students were quite confident about their knowledge in terms of political concepts and EFL, and English as a foreign language. And they were moderately confident about technological knowledge in terms of general, augmented reality and technology in general. But they were not so confident as regards pedagogical knowledge. And particularly, the red circles, you can see the intersections, because we have CK, BK, TK, but then we have TCK, technological content knowledge, PCK, pedagogical content knowledge, and finally TPK, technological pedagogical knowledge. And this was actually the major problem for them, how to integrate, what methods they should use to integrate augmented reality in the EFL classrooms, you can see here, because they really didn't know some of these methods. So this is a breakdown, as I said before, of the different dimensions, different sections in the TPACK framework. And you can see technology knowledge, the first one, the means were moderately high. Content knowledge as well. So you can see I can express my ideas and feelings by speaking in English and so on. And pedagogical knowledge, I can use teaching methods and techniques that are appropriate for a learning environment. But when we get to the specific intersections, like pedagogical content knowledge, I can manage a flipped classroom learning environment. They just go down, which is consistent with previous studies. But if you pay attention, especially to this section, intersection number 6, technological, pedagogical knowledge, that's where you get the lowest results. So you can see, for example, I can design clear learning materials by using AIR lessons that support students' language learning. That was a problem for them. And I can design clear learning materials by using AIR lessons that support students' content learning, so sciences, history, and so on. So this was the major problem, everything that was related with pedagogical knowledge in terms of the integration of augmented reality in the classroom. Okay, and so this is a summary. In fact, just you can see the different sections and intersections, and I just put a red color just to highlight that, as you can see. So pedagogical knowledge, especially pedagogical content knowledge and technological pedagogical knowledge, because they were not familiar with some of the different methods that I mentioned before in the introduction, like connectivism, situated learning, just to integrate augmented reality in the EFL classrooms. That was one of the major challenges for them. So just to finish, going back to the conclusions, the first one, remember the hypothesis, the first one was pre-service teachers have the technological skills to create AR lessons, AR-based lessons aimed at teaching English to children. And the answer is yes, they do. It's actually, they prove they can create their own AR-based lessons. And even if that was the first experience for them as content creators, not as content recipients, that was quite challenging, but they managed, they finished their projects. They completed their projects. The second was pre-service teachers have the pedagogical skills to integrate their lessons. And I just tried to demonstrate that based on the results, as you can see here, that they do not have. And that was something that they said that they needed better training. They needed more training, not only as regards technological aspects with augmented reality, but also how to integrate augmented reality effectively in the EFL classroom, minimally effectively in the EFL classroom. So that was one of the major problems here, as I mentioned before. And the last one is pre-service teachers have a positive attitude toward the use of augmented reality, in the EFL classroom. And the answer is yes, they do. They have a very positive attitude, and most of them, as we saw, they really enjoy sharing their projects and even implementing them with children in the real classroom. That was something that they really enjoyed based on the online discussions that we had. And I think that puts an end to my presentation. And I'll be just pleased to answer your questions. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose, for this informative, thought-provoking presentation. Let's wait for the questions. I have a question, but I will wait until the end. Thank you. Yes. Well, my question would be, sorry. My question would be, what about teacher educators? How ready they are to introduce AR in teacher education programs, and how can they introduce it without having any skills in integrating it?
Yeah, well, this is one of the major challenges, of course, and I have a couple of students who are working now on their doctoral thesis about in the integration and so on. And well, we would say that there's like two different parts here. One is about their preparation, their readiness to do that. And of course, they obviously need, as we said, that better training, especially if we talk about in-service teachers. Mm-hmm. So pre-service teachers, for example, those are my students. They get all that preparation and so on, but not in-service teachers. So one of my students, for example, the one that I told you that is just right now finishing the doctoral thesis and so on, he did the same lesson here in high school, and he observed that there were some problems with some of the in-service teachers. One was because of lack of preparation, of course. That was something, as we say, emerging technologies that they're not familiar with. But also he observed there were some problems as regards to attitudes. Some of them will say, well, no, I don't really want to use that for different reasons. Just I'm not really feeling, I don't feel confident, for example. Or some teachers will say, well, I don't want my students, for example, to use a smartphone in the classroom because I think that can be distracting. So some of them will think that can be a distraction. So I don't really trust this technology, and I don't want, and so on. So it just depends on the teachers. It depends on the setting, the school, and so on. But the truth is that this will increase, as we said, because right now, if you look, for example, around and you see like even major companies like IKEA and so on, all of them actually have like the smartphones. All of them just want to use that. And we all know that when you go shopping, when you go somewhere and so on, it's very convenient just to have all these different options, and it will increase. So I'm sure that in education it will. But it's true that they will need better preparation. They will need better preparation.
I agree. I agree with you. Thank you. And Suzan Hocam made a comment. Your pre-service teachers are now so much better equipped in terms of AR applications. They probably will improve their pedagogical knowledge in the meantime and be ready to present interesting lessons to young learners.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Suzan. That's true. This is even, I have to tell you that my students, for example, when I asked them, they said that they had taken before some technology lessons and so on. But again, the problem is that sometimes they are basically exposed, as I said before, they're basically exposed as users. So they don't really, they say, okay, this is augmented reality, and they don't really tell you, they don't teach you how to create and the different tools that you can use to create your own various lessons. And so that was one of the problems they observed, is that they know how to, some of them are gamers, they play video games and so on. So of course they know how to use augmented reality, which is a thing, but they don't know how to create their own augmented reality lessons. That's the next step. And the last step is how to integrate them, how to use them in the classroom, just to make sure that everything is on. So that's a very good question, Susanna. That was probably one of the major challenges. And eventually they will learn. That's true. Okay, they will do that. But the good thing about the experiment was that when they went to the real classroom with children, and I didn't have time to share that with you, but that was very interesting. Just when they learned to the real classroom with children, we could see the different problems that they observed in the classroom with children, primary and secondary education, of course, in terms of, for example, class management with different tablets and smartphones and those kind of things. So that's something that they will learn obviously by practice, but it takes time. So thank you, Susan, for the comment. Thank you.
And also Ayşegül Hoca also made the comment, thank you so much. I studied pre-service EFL teachers self-efficacy and acceptance level in using AR technology to design teaching and learning materials. As part of my master's thesis, I also reached similar findings, she says.
Yes, that's true. My student is actually combining, is comparing the use of augmented reality and, let's say, a more traditional approach, which is paper-based. And so far, the results that we observe in different students is that we cannot clearly say that the use of augmented reality will, let's say, will provide more effective results in terms of language learning and so on. Because, well, we don't really see that based on the results from my students, the PhD students, but it's clear that the students who are exposed to augmented reality, there's higher enjoyment and engagement and so on. So that's probably one of the things that they observe, that they are more concentrated, and that's the novelty effect we're calling technology. So they're more concentrated, there's more enjoyment and so on in terms of technologies. That's the thing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose, and thank you so much for participating and your contribution to our conference.
Thank you, Esra Hocam. My name is Suzan Uysal Yıldırım. I'm an English language teacher in Afyonkarahisar Dumlupınar Science and Arts Center. Also, I'm an MA student in Süleyman Demirel University. Melike Hocam and I prepared this presentation. Okay, this is better. So our topic is Web 2.0 tools in English language teaching. It's a review of the literature from 2016 to 2021, actually May. The purpose of our study is to create a general framework of the previous academic studies conducted between 2016 and 2021 May in Turkey. We made this research on national studies and thesis on the use of Web 2.0 tools in English language teaching, and we looked for the choice of web tools, the participants' time and number, what kind of research methods the researchers chose, and the effects. Okay, so using technology is a rising trend in education, especially in our department, and its advantages both for the teachers and learners. So it offers an integration into the classroom, and it's defined as the incorporation of computer technology into the learning experience as a tool, as a medium for instruction to enhance and support learning processes across all subject areas, but especially in English language teaching, it's seeing that we use these tools a lot. Also, this integration, this technology integration, benefits in vocabulary, in grammar, in a lot of ways. When it comes to our research methods, the collected data were analyzed through content analysis without any researcher's intervention. We collected data from Council of Higher Education, and we found 39 master and 3 doctorate theses. And also in Google Scholar, we found 14 national articles. Actually, there are more than 14, but when we narrow down it into English language teaching, we have found 14 ones. And this list is a little bit long. There are a lot of lists, but to have a quick, if you have a quick look, we categorized the year, the university, the thesis type, and research methods, what kind of web tools, and the sample type and time, especially for the experimental research, and the effects seen in the end of the studies. And as you see, there are lots of different web tools. One of them is Facebook, or in some studies, researchers had a general, tried to find a general idea. They used Kahoot or Edmodo, Quizlet, or other ICT tools. These are all in the thesis. You can see the categorizations. So it's a really long list. So in our findings, I think this is very normal, this pie chart. 40 studies have been done in ELT department, but just 2 ones have been done in English language and literature. I think this is very normal. When it comes to the thesis type, we have found only 3 doctorate theses, and most of them were done in MA studies. I think this chart is really interesting. When we have a look at the universities, it seems like the Web 2.0 tools were scattered through the universities, but especially Bahçeşehir University have made 15 studies about this topic. And these are the articles. We have also analyzed the articles. We looked at the web tools, results, sample, years. There are 14 articles. And when it comes to choice of web tools, we have found that Quizlet was the most preferred ones in graduate studies, also Kahoot, and number 3 is Facebook. Maybe Facebook started losing its popularity, but Quizlet and Kahoot are rising according to this table. And I think this table is really interesting because the participant type is generally the university students, especially EFL students and ELT ones. When it comes to Ministry of National Education, as you can see, there are really few studies for the young learners. When we have a look at the average number of participants in graduate studies, as you can see, the researchers mostly prefer more than 30, actually between 30 and 60, maybe to find the necessary number of 30. But when it comes to articles, as you can see, the sample is much more different. In qualitative studies, they prefer few numbers, but in the other surveys, more than 151 participants were chosen. And when it comes to the research methods, as you can see, mostly researchers preferred mixed methods. So they combined both qualitative and quantitative methods to support their ideas. Also the same in the national articles. And when we analyze the research questions and the results of the studies, we have found that motivation, perception, and academic success were the mostly researched areas, especially vocabulary teaching, pronunciation, grammar teaching were mostly seen in the researches. And also anxiety, enjoyment, collaboration could also be seen in the results. When it comes to discussion, in most of the research, according to their results, learning with technology motivated students, increased their participation, and encouraged their interaction. However, there were also some disadvantages. One of them was internet connection. Generally, the connection in the classrooms are really bad. Also, some technical problems arise, and classroom management problems in crowded classes. And according to the studies done with the teachers, a need for more courses on educational technology to student teachers and also to current teachers of English is rising. So student teachers want to apply these Web 2.0 tools in their classrooms, but they don't know which one or how to do. And motivation, perception, and academic success are the leading effects researched, most probably because technology has a great effect on language learning, especially when we think about the new generation. Technology seems a must in the education. So ELT researchers in Turkey mostly conducted their studies with from 31 to 60 students, mostly around 30, 40. Maybe a bigger sample could give better ideas or results. And they generally used convenience sampling method, so their own students. And the experimental studies lasted mostly 8 weeks. 8 weeks, I think this is not enough, but maybe because of some procedural problems, some official signatures, blah, blah. Because of these problems, maybe the researcher can have only 8 weeks. And more courses, especially in service trainings. When I have a look at the e-twinning courses in cities, they generally focus on web tools. So the Ministry of National Education works to help to the teachers, but who are voluntary ones. When we have a look at these graphics, it is seen that when we have a look at the frequencies, the studies are rising, especially in the thesis. But after this pandemic outbreak, I'm sure that in the next few years, there will be more studies about this issue, because pandemic has been a kind of catalyst in technology. I mean, it has accelerated the integration of technology into education, especially for ELT, English language teachers, because we are much more familiar with the English terms. And it seems the frequency of articles in years looks much more steady. And to sum up the presentation, Quizlet, Kahoot, and Facebook are the most preferred Web 2.0 tools. Most research were done with 31 to 60 participants from EFL university students, and the most used, most preferred design was mixed method. Motivation, perception, and academic success were the most studied effects. When it comes to the limitations, we have done this meta-analysis through Council of Higher Education website and Google Scholar. While collecting the data, we used some keywords like Web 2.0 tools, English language education, English language and culture, ELT, and we entered the most common used Web 2.0 tools name like Kahoot, Facebook, Quizzes, Edmodo. So if there is any other related study, it may not be included in this research because of their keywords. They may be dismissed, but not intentionally. And the next slide. Yeah, here are the references And thank you for your listening. And it's a great honor to be here.
Thank you, Hocam, for your great timing and also the presentation.
Any question, any suggestion?
We can take questions, comments, or suggestions if you have any. Hocam, I guess you just reviewed the national literature, right?
Yes, national. I come back. Maybe this is a better idea. National articles and the national thesis.
Maybe, I mean, as a next step, there could be a comparison between national and international literature. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, this is a great idea. Actually, the first idea was this, but then we had to narrow down the study just to national ones. But we will do it. I'm sure.
Sometimes, you know, time considerations, or like, I mean, some other things, other factors may limit. I understand.
We have new speakers, and the speakers are G.K. Partridge, Salomon, and Sandrine-Marie Simon. And the title of their presentation will be Empowering Students to Teach English in the Primary Classroom in France. And the floor is yours. Thank you so much for participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So good morning for some of you and good afternoon for others. My name is Jill K. Partridge Salomon, and I'm a senior lecturer at the Teacher Training Institute in Limoges, France. And this is my colleague Sandrine.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, Sandrine is a lecturer also at Limoges, but currently teaching in Montreal, and she's a PhD student. So we would like to share our research with you on the ways we try to empower our students to teach English in primary schools in France. So just before we begin, I'd just like to show you where we are. So this is Limoges, which is west of the center of France, an extremely rural area, which perhaps explains why our students, very few of our students actually have been to English-speaking countries, and the level of their English is very low. So Limoges is the main city, the main teacher training institute, and we have two sister institutes at Guéret, where Sandrine also works, and myself at Tulle. Very rural areas. We both teach English and what we call English didactics, so teaching techniques. We train future primary school teachers to teach English in primary schools. And this actually is in a 2-year master's degree in teaching and education. So our students come to us with a first degree in any subject and very varying levels of English. So in the 2 years, they stay with us. In the first year, they have 2 periods of practicum. And then in the second year, they have to teach part-time, 2.5 days a week in a primary school while carrying on their studies to finish off their masters. So in 2016, a foreign or regional language was made compulsory for all children from the age of 6 upwards, and this for 1.5 hours per week. So since then, our student teachers are required to teach a foreign language. And for us in the Limoges area, this is solely English, right from the beginning of their second year. So our difficult task is to train these students to obtain the CFR or the CFR level 2, which they need to validate their masters, and they need the masters to qualify as a teacher and gain tenure. But also it's really difficult for us to actually to prepare them to teach English to young learners in the limited number of hours at our disposal. And especially most of our students lack confidence in teaching the subjects. And of course, here it's a language they don't feel proficient in. And in fact, fewer than 10% of our students actually have majored in English. So we'd like just to consider the verb we're using here, to empower. And these are some definitions we found in Webster's. So the first one, to give official authority or legal power to. For us, this means the ways we try to help them in their roles as educators in the French education system. To enable, for us, is to enable them to teach English as professionally and as well as possible, and to promote the self-actualization or influence of. For us, this means to promote both their personal and professional well-being and growth.
So our classes, in fact, are unconventional, especially for French standards, but having fun, playing games, having free discussions, feelings, playing either the pupil's role or the teacher's. All this helps the students, and the reason why we decided to carry out action research. Indeed, at the beginning of each school year, first session, many of our students explain they do not feel ready or at ease just to teach English to their pupils, some of them being really scared, even reluctant, to try to change those negative feelings. We instinctively had decided to practice with them fun activities like singing, hand clapping games, dancing, doing sports in English before offering a discussion time. And because we had noticed a change in their attitude and confidence, we carried out action research the following school year to evaluate and understand what had happened.
Okay, so we instinctively felt that the methods we were using were the right ones for our students, but before we actually carried out this action research, we decided to do slightly more scientific research, and quite surprised that a lot of research has actually been done on the importance of emotions in the classroom and also the language classroom. So the study of the role of emotions in L2 classes then is not recent. Starting here with humanistic approaches to education, which appeared in the 1960s. And these put emphasis on holistic learning and taking into account the vital role of feelings and emotions in learning. And then in the 80s with Stephen Krashen and the affective filter. So for Krashen, anxiety experienced during L2 learning creates a filter which prevents learners from progressing. And then follow various methods, Suggestopedia, the silent way, community language learning, total physical response. Many of these actually inspired from Krashen's affective filter. So nowadays, there's growing interest in the role of affect in L2 learning. Arnold actually noted that existential competence, what the French calls savoir-être, now appears in the list of competences of the CFR. So this covers attitudes, motivations, values, beliefs, personality factors such as self-confidence, self-esteem, anxiety, and even fear. So if you quote actually the CFR, attitudes and personality factors greatly affect, but not only the language users, learners' roles in communicative acts, but also their ability to learn. Many students, and we experience this all the time, many students seem to have a blockage when it comes to learning in L2. Horwitz and Al postulate it's a form of anxiety specific to foreign language learning. While learning in L2, one's self-image becomes more vulnerable when one doesn't actually master the language, especially when adults are concerned. And of course, we are working with young adults. This can lead to reluctance, embarrassment, fear, or even panic, and sometimes actually aggressive behavior. Reeve also evokes physical manifestations such as increased cardiac rhythm, trembling hands, sweating, etc. So anxiety in the classroom can thus impede acquisition, as it can engender troubles of comprehension and production. So it's vital that teachers take into account the emotional needs of their students and create a feeling of confidence in the language classroom, but in all classroom situations. And I just like to finish this part with a couple of quotes. For Stevic, success in language learning depends less on materials, techniques, and linguistic analyses, and more on what goes on inside and between the people in the classroom. And Williams et al., when teachers show enthusiasm and passion, students pick up on this, and it can be contagious. So students thus develop a similar passion for the subject. So this research actually comforted us in our research and our techniques, and we realized that we were on the right track.
So how did we do? During our first lessons in September 2019, in order to have a diagnosis, we asked our students to fill in a questionnaire before beginning the activities or having a discussion. For example, we asked them how long they had been studying English and how they felt emotionally and physically about teaching English, and this before the first didactic session. You are now going to watch an example of what we did with them just after the first questionnaire.
And the sun, sailing around the room, sailing around the chimney pot, every afternoon, sailing around the sun, sailing around the room, sailing around the chimney pot, every afternoon, every afternoon,
Well, so then at the end of the first session, and without discussing with them, so as not to influence their answers, we gave them the second questionnaire to study if and how the fact of experiencing the different activities had an influence on their state of mind, their feelings, and their state of mind compared to the beginning of the lesson. So let's now have a look at the results. I can see that, yes, thanks, Jill. When you look at the table, you can see a real difference between the students' feelings before the first session and just after, an hour later. Indeed, they do not feel nervous, stressed, or even ill at ease anymore, but rather relieved, confident, and safe. And what is also interesting is that only 27.7% of them felt comfortable enough to teach English in Cycle 3, meaning pupils aged between 9 and 11, before the first session, whereas 44.4% then feel confident to do it. So to give you a better idea of some activities, we play games in which students have to communicate a lot. For example, games with headbands, masks or little objects, flashcards or labels to manipulate. It is really rare that a student does not want to participate. So this action research could make us teachers more generally reconsider the practical issues and implications of our lessons. Indeed, if getting emotionally and physically involved with our trainee teachers can empower them to teach English, why not enlarge this experiment to other school subjects? And since we also recently created a board game club at our teaching institute, we thought that we could carry out new research action on how trainee teachers feel about playing games to teach English.
There we are. We just thought that, yes, thank you. Yes, just to finish off, we're just going to show you a very short video which I received last week. It was the holidays here in France, and some of my students had gone on holiday together, and this is something that they sent me very spontaneously. Some students who were particularly shy in class, and I'm just going to show you what they sent me last week. Sorry, it's just gone back again.
I wish I was there with them.
Yes, we wish we were there. Thank you very much for
Yes.
listening.
Thank you.
And thank you for this presentation.
Dear guests, welcome you all to 20th INGED International ELT Conference. And in this session, Nurda, Karadeniz, Kayalı, Elif, Meltem, Birsöz, Özköse, and Zana, Hanar will present their study to us. And this is a paper session, so they have 20 minutes. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to write on our chat board. And at the end of the presentation, our presenters will answer your questions. So the stage is yours.
Thank you. So hello everyone again. And I would like to welcome you to our presentation titled Transfer in Foreign Language Teaching, Behaviorist, Mentalist, and Cognitive Views. Three of us we are presenting today. It's me, Nurda, Karadeniz, Kayalı, and my friends Elif, Meltem, Birsöz, Özköse, and Zana, Hanar will continue. So transferring a foreign language is an important process in second language acquisition. Many studies have addressed the use of transfer as a strategy in foreign language learning, and all agree that transfer from the first language does occur in foreign language learning under various constraints. It is stated that the developments in language transfer research in the 20th century are divided into three periods and three sections as behavioral, mental, and cognitive views. I will be talking about the behaviorist theory. The idea of language transfer dates back to the behaviorist era in the 1950s and 1960s. And according to the behaviorist theory, as we all know, in the language learning part, but here we are going to mention about the behaviorist theory in transfer concept. The main barrier to learning is interference from prior knowledge, as elicited. In case of language learning, the prior knowledge is the knowledge of mother tongue and perhaps another language learned before the learner has learned relevant language, called here the target language. The underlying idea of language transfer is the behaviorist belief that language learning involves habit formation. Therefore, when learning another language, learner transfer the habit of using the native language to the habit of using the target language. And in other words, according to behaviorism, learning a mother tongue is a habitual acquisition. It occurs as a result of repetitive coexistence of a chain of positive reinforced warnings and reactions. So foreign or second language learning is the process of forming new habits that can overcome the influence of habits acquired in the mother tongue. According to second language learning behaviorist theories, the difficulty in learning a second language primarily depends on how similar or different the target language pattern is to the mother tongue pattern. Structures that are same in both mother tongue and second language will facilitate learning. The student can transfer the first language form, which is called positive transfer, to the second language. So, for example, the syntax order in Turkish is subject, object, verb, and a Turkish speaker can make a positive transfer while learning a language with the same syntax. So, the similarity between syntaxes create convenience in second language acquisition. However, if the same person is learning a new language with different syntax, this may cause negative transfer. So where the linguistic structures between the two languages are different, learning difficulties will often arise through the so-called negative transfer, which means interference. This view brings for educational purposes the need to perform contrastive analysis, comparing the learner's L1 with the target language to find points of similarity and difference between the two. The contrastive analysis hypothesis is a field of comparative linguistics that deals with comparing two or more languages. for theoretical or non-analytic purposes to identify differences or similarities between them. It implies to believe in language universals. If there were no common features, it would not be a basis for comparison. In its broad definition, contrastive analysis has been used as a tool to construct language genealogy in comparative historical linguistics, and to construct language taxonomies in typological linguistics, to explore equivalence problems in translation theory, to construct bilingual dictionaries, as Tajere stated in 2015. Dealing with the behaviorist view from a different dimension, Zana mentioned linguistic background and psychological background features. Linguistic background, Bloomfield's classical word language, it is pretty old, but still it provides a very detailed account of how these behaviorists perceive language. And the most basic position of the behaviorist is that language is speech rather than writing. That is, speaking first, then writing. The reason they have this idea is primarily because most children learn to speak before they learn to write. And second, many areas do not have a written language, but an oral language. Psychological history also argues that learning is a cumulative process. The more knowledge and skills an individual acquires, the more likely it is that his new learning will be shaped by his past experiences and activities. So an adult rarely learns something completely new, no matter how foreign the task he encounters. The knowledge and the habits he has formed in the past will be his starting point. Therefore, the transfer of training from old situations to new situations is part of much, if not all, learning. In this sense, transfer study is synonymous with the study of learning. And Salinger compared the English interlanguage of 13 and 15-year-old Israeli children. Here, this is an important study done in 1972. And the students, okay, let me again explain a clear way. Israeli children with the speech of native Hebrew children and the speech of English native language. So they directly find a direct transfer, direct effect of Hebrew here. And over time, the behaviorist theory lost its influence and gave it to the mentalistic theory defined by Chomsky and proposed by a series of universal and innate mechanism of language acquisition. And from here on, my friend Elif, Meltem, Birsöz will go on.
Okay. Welcome everyone again. I would like to talk about mentalistic theory. So I would like to share my screen again. No, I cannot do it.
So Nurda hocam, when you stop your sharing, Elif hocam can later.
Okay. I hope you can see it well. Just a minute. Okay. So hello everyone again. I would like to talk about mentalistic theory. It was developed by Chomsky in America, and it claims that the structures in language, how language develops and language acquisition occur not with the environment, but with the innate features of the individual. And it is theory and contradicted almost every detail of the behaviorist theory. And here we have a diagram, and it shows the differences between behaviorist and mentalist views. And mentalist theory claims that language learning is an innate, inborn process, and it is not a behavior, but a specific mental process. And children learn a language by application, and language learning is analytical, full of creation, and the role of exposure to language is quite vital. On the other hand, behaviorist theory claims that language acquisition is a stimulus-response process. It's a conditioned behavior, and children learn a language by imitation. Language learning is based on practice, and of course, the role of imitation, repetition, and reinforcement and motivation is very significant in language learning. In fact, they are all necessary, I guess. This is my humble opinion. We need all of them while learning a language. So, according to this theory, Chomsky named innate knowledge as the language acquisition device. And in fact, he insisted that every human being is born with a language acquisition device. and it embodies the nature and structure of human language. And also he emphasized that the language acquisition device is important for language acquisition. And a child is pre-programmed, to speak a language, whether he likes it or not, because the language acquisition device is connected to the child's brain from birth. So here we can see the lead, which is mentioned by Chomsky. So it is a postulated organ of the brain that is supposed to function as a congenital device for learning symbolic language. And also language involves retrieval of information from many brain areas. We have Broca's area and also Wernicke's area in our minds, brains. So Broca's area plays a major role in language and speech, and Wernicke's area also, it plays a role in understanding written and spoken language, according to Chomsky. According to this theory, we can also say that everyone learns a language not because they are exposed to a similar process, but because they have an innate capacity, and it allows them to acquire a language as a normal maturation process. So it's a kind of normal maturation process. Of course, we can learn a language, Chomsky says. And language must provide limited means, but endless possibilities of expression. So we can combine to produce new words. Okay, we have a limited number of words and structures, but we can combine a lot of things, Chomsky says again. So another diagram we have, and input. First of all, we have primary linguistic data, adult speech, and then we have LAD, language acquisition device. And we can see here general language learning principles and grammatical knowledge rules. So we have them. So they are in our minds. So in this framework, we may also face with universal grammar, because according to universal grammar, we have everything in our minds, such as we have adverbs, adjectives, verbs, we know all of them. And lastly, output comes. So child's speech is shown here as an output. What about the main principles of mentalistic theory? So we can say that language learning is mostly innate and it is not a habit construct. In addition, it is a kind of biological process. So it is not about social learning, and it's about mental developments. Also, linguistic behavior does not consist of responses to stimuli, namely, we don't have any stimulus and response relationship in terms of mentalistic theory, and it is not correct because a child uses cognitive behavior to explore the structure of spoken language in his environment. Moreover, behaviorist theory has mostly analyzed animal behavior in the laboratory, but human behavior is characterized as much more complex than animal behavior. So it is the innate environment that matters, not the external environment. Chomsky says again. So we have some counter arguments about it. First one is, it is stated that the language acquisition is not completely innate, nor it is just a biological structure. Since children grow up in a social environment, there is an undeniable effect on language learning from the social environment, because we can see the presence of people such as parents around the child, so it creates a natural social environment, in fact. Second one is, again, the individual's worldview and cognitive system are naturally controlled and shaped by social factors, so it is really difficult to embrace the idea that social factors play almost no role. Of course, they play a big role, major role in language learning, because our friends, our family members, our parents, so they shape us, they shape how we are learning a language, in fact. And the last one, the use and impact of imitations and reinforcements. They cannot be completely dismissed, because the role of imitation, repetition, reinforcement in areas such as learning vocabulary items and structural patterns cannot be completely dismissed. We need them, but it is reasonable to use considerable amount of imitation and repetition, I guess. And yep, as a conclusion, we can say that it's an obvious fact that the mentalistic theory challenges many of the claims of behaviorist language use. And a special contribution of the mentalistic theory to language learning is its strong emphasis on human language behavior. In other words, according to Chomsky, human behavior is significantly more complex. It is clear that describing and explaining human verbal behavior through the learning behavior of animals is not a reliable attitude. For this reason, we can say that mentalistic language learning produces meaningful and conscious learning in both children and adults. So thank you. Zana Hocam will continue.
So thank you very much. By the way, you have just 5 minutes left.
Yeah,
Thank you so
hello.
much.
This is Zana, and I would like to speak about the cognitive view. Sorry, this is not the right one. Okay. I think this is okay. Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. I'm very glad to join this meeting, and I'd like to say something about cognitive views of transfer. I think this is the most complex one because the cognitive view is includes both behavioristic view and the other also mentalistic view. So the concept of cognition, in fact, because it includes many points and many things, it is always in the process of developing, and new thoughts and new views, new approach, always getting involved in this process. So I don't have enough time, but I will try to explain just as a summary. The concept of cognition refers to internal mental process, and cognition is not just about the person. It also includes the social environment and also the interaction between language itself, social environment, people, and the human and the personality, the individual differences, age and motivation, and learning styles, skills. All of these are very important factors that affect the learning process and the cognitive views. It explains cognitive views. Firstly, it is not a passive thing, it is active, and it always changes. There is a process in it, and always it constructs itself. So it determines how we organize the information and sensitivity. There is a sensitivity, perception, imagination, retention, recall, problem solving, and thinking. And if we look at this diagram, we can see that the cognitive view is the interaction between behaviorist view and mentalistic view. Because in behaviorist view, we spoke about the habitual actions and social environment conditioning. In mentalistic view, we can say that it's inborn, and there is a LED language acquisition device, and everything is about mental. But cognitive views oppose this, not oppose, but it says that's not exactly completed. These expressions are not exactly completed ones. They must be completed with cognitive view, because we have in our mind, we give a meaning to the word, external word, with our learning skills, with our efforts to learn, mind, and we are very active in learning process. So the focus is on the meaning and the usage of the dimension of the language. It says language is learned, not acquired exactly. And I would like to say something to be more comprehensible about Piaget. Piaget, as you know, he's very famous about learning language in an environment which is especially focused on the mental process, which is in development, and the learning process, which can be in development, in a ongoing development with our mental process. So he says, we have got a schema. This is very important because we live and we experiment everything, and so we create our schematas. And I think I don't have time, but I will try to.
Yeah, Zana Hocam, unfortunately, the time is over. So could you please wrap up quickly, just in a minute?
Okay.
Sorry for that.
I would like to say about the cognitive transfer, markedness especially. Markedness is very important, and in markedness, when we transfer something, as our friend Nurda spoke about, the positive transfer and negative transfer, but in cognitive view, it is said that it's not so easy one. It's not so simple. It's a more complex situation. So the Ekman and Odlin and some other scholars, Kellerman, they give their opinions about markedness, differential hypothesis, contrastive analysis hypothesis, and we can understand that this is not a very easy process, which can be said, with just this, there is a positive or negative transfer, but there are many complex other subjects that can be involved in this process in markedness situations. So language transfers, in fact, is a complex one. And I can summarize that there is an external world, and we have a social environment, and language is something like that. It's affected by all these things, but the thing happens in our internal structure, which consists of age, individual differences, as I said, scheme and motivation, our skills, because we learn all things and we interact them. So these things, our language, the phonology, phonetics, the language we know, our schemata, affects all parts of the transfer, in fact. So this is not a very simple process, it's a complex process. I want to mean that cognitive process also give ways to new views, which in the future may break out new views and new developments. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Zana Hocam. So, although the time is over, if our guests has some questions about your presentation, we may get the questions from the chat board. And
we
also,
would like to answer your questions, or we have very limited time. I shared my email, or Elif, Meltem Hocam can share, or Zana Hocam. The participants can ask any kind of question to us via email.
Okay, thank you very much, Nurda Hocam. Thank you. So I guess all our guests can see your emails on our chat board. So if you have any questions related to this presentation, could you please feel free to contact our presenters via the emails they shared on our chat board. So thank you very much. Thank you, Nurda Hocam, and also Elif Hocam and Zana Hocam. And thank you very much.
The topic is the psychological impact of using mobile applications to learn second languages on students from universities in Hong Kong and mainland China. We have three speakers, Tsai Pingping and Li Chuhang and Guan Xin. The screen is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome
welcome to join the room 5 to listen to our presentation. And for the presentation, I will give brief introduction and literature review about our topic. And my partner Li Shihong and Guan Xin will give more details about our research findings. So let's begin. The developing speed of technology imposes the demand for integrating emerging technologies into practice. Mobile-assisted language learning (MALL) enables students' language acquisition through various mobile applications, and provides students with methods to integrate mobile technologies in their language learning process in and outside the classroom. University students who have grown up in the digital world are used to using electronic devices such as mobile phones and laptops in various learning settings. As for university students, the availability and the convenience of using mobile applications means more chance for them to fit learning into life. So exploring how students use mobile applications and how it benefits their learning is crucial for building a picture of combining technology with the practice in language education. And university students are mostly passionate mobile phone users and are heavily engaged with digital devices in learning and non-learning related activities. The distracting influence of technologies on learning are worthy of exploring from the individual, social, and learning perspectives. And there are potential differences in the social and the cultural backgrounds of university students from Hong Kong and mainland China, which might affect their learning styles and motivations when they study second language. Some studies show that the motivation for learning second languages between mainland China and Hong Kong has some difference. In mainland China, students learn English for the purpose of achieving self-goals, earning high salaries, or studying abroad. But in comparison, English was considered as a compulsory language in schools of Hong Kong and played a substantial role in business, media, and culture in Hong Kong. They also found that the most Hong Kong students expected to study English for knowing second languages can help them to develop hobbies and interests. The use of smartphones can be beneficial for learners for their cognitive capacity, motivation, and confidence for the purpose of promoting their personalized learning. This study aims at the psychological aftermath effect of students using mobile applications to learn second languages and reveals the mechanism of students' perceptions and psychological change in learning through mobile applications. The central question that this project asks is, one, does the nature of psychological impact vary depending on the function of mobile applications, such as a specific type of game, activity, or program? And the second question is, how do university students reflect their psychological change and the impacts after using mobile applications to learn second languages? And the next part, my partner Xu will give more information about our quantitative results.
Okay. Our study is a mixed method study. In the quantitative part, we employ online survey to conduct data collection. 4 instruments has been used. Fluent language classroom anxiety scale for anxiety, attitude motivation test battery for motivation and attitudes, and English language confidence scale for self-confidence, and mindsets of language learning scale for mindsets. The inclusion criteria of our participation is university students who are using or have used apps to learn English from mainland China and Hong Kong. In total, 180 students was included in our study. And the reliability of the instrument show very high reliabilities. Okay, next. The majority, this table shows the social characteristic of participation. The majority of the participations are female students. The mean age of them is approximately 22. Students use less than 2 apps to learn English on average. And in our study, 127 from mainland China and 53 from Hong Kong. Yes. Okay, let's move to the comparison between mainland China and Hong Kong. It could be found that mainland China students display higher confidence and anxiety than their counterparts in Hong Kong, but no significant. Surprisingly, there was a significant difference in mindsets between mainland China students and Hong Kong students. The possible reason is that in Hong Kong, higher education system, English serves as a medium of instruction. Hong Kong students may think that their English competency is less possible to improve. But in mainland China, students may feel that if they still hard before the test, their English competence or English academic achievement may be improved. Okay, let's move to the correlation among the major variables. Anxiety is significant positive associated with mindsets, and confidence is significant negative with mindsets. This finding supports that mindsets is the source of the self-confidence and anxiety. For example, students with growth mindsets are more likely to develop their ability and show better adaptive patterns in terms of seeking of challenging tests and the maintenance of effective coping under failure. And motivation attitude is significant negative associated with mindsets. In addition, we also find that students with higher anxiety may have less confidence, and students with higher motivation also have less confidence to learn English, which may lie in the fact that both Hong Kong students and mainland China students, both Hong Kong and mainland China education system is test-based. Students may suffer from higher stress in learning English. Further study which take this variable into account will need to take undertaking, especially the relationship between the anxiety and mindsets. Okay, my partner Guan Xin will introduce the qualitative analysis.
A total of 20 interviewees were recruited from different universities in mainland China and Hong Kong. The interviews were transcribed verbatim, checked, and coded using a directed content analysis. 3 overage things and relative subthings were identified. Next. The things were personality assessment of English competence, usage experience of mobile applications, and psychological impact in learning motivation, the degree of self-confidence and change of their mental issue, especially for anxiety, and attitudes toward efforts. Next. The first recent questions is about personal assessment of English competence. There is no significant difference between Hong Kong and mainland China. However, in the self-assessment part, Hong Kong students rate higher score for themselves. Most of them believe that they do well in reading, but they should enhance their abilities in speaking and listening. The second research question is about the usage experience of mobile applications and for substance included. In the first substance, interviews share all kinds of applications in learning English. They mostly use as for study and examinations. Especially interviews from Mainland China will spend more time on as for learning because they should finish homework or exercise using as which they were required by their teachers. Next. The second substance, the question is, which features of English learning apps appeal to you and why? On the topic, students in Hong Kong and Mainland China have similar views. The test functions of English learning apps can provide students with different types of tests to meet their learning needs so that and also achieve than to use it. Some get a sense of challenge and competitions. Moreover, the games sector always also play an important role as these games are forms of entertainment that relax them. Next is about the third sense. The question is about the advantage and the disadvantage about learning English through mobile as compared with the class. Students from the Mainland and Hong Kong also make similar conclusion about the advantage and disadvantages of using mobile apps to learning English. On the plus side, the feasibilities of space and the time is what they agree on. Moreover, some students point out that using mobile applications to learn English is good for them to make plans because of the different options and massive knowledge that these apps can offer. They can freely choose whatever that interests them. However, on the downside, the progress and timetable of using mobile apps are determined by students themselves. That means that the students should have self-discipline when studying. For oral English learning, the common problem when using mobile apps is limited interruption. This debate the purpose of learning a language, which is communication. Another thing is activity using mobile apps show interactive feedback which affect the learning process. Next, the first sensitive question is about, do you think learning English through mobile apps can improve your English skills? Here, most of interviews gave positive responses about whether they have progress after using apps, especially in listening and vocabulary. In China, most of English educators and teachers often point out that words are the foundation of English learning, and as long as you master it, you can improve your skill. Nowadays, there are many mobile apps for memorize, which have been popular by the students. In fact, most of them are effective. It can be also seen from our interview that some students answer focus on it. At the same time, some students also have improved their listening skills by using apps. Note that listening is the weak part in studying English for Chinese students, and it is considered to be one of the most difficult skills in English learning. Most of students will spend a significant time to overcome it, which means that many English apps integrate into listening materials required by students so that students can practice listening through apps and finally get a good progress. The third reason question is about, next please. The third research question is about the psychological impact and include 5 questions. Next. The first question is, do you using mobile apps can improve your interest in learning English compared with classroom teaching? All interviews agree with it, the reason we mentioned before. Next, the second question is about the motivation. More responsible believe the mobile apps can be a tool for them that should be more promoted for learning purpose and prepare for their examination. Some of them argue that apps can make their needs and demands that provide them motivation to learn English. The third question, The third question is about the anxiety. Some students think that anxiety cannot be reduced. The one set of society is from study itself and not from mobile phone or apps. Hence, anxiety may generate in any situation. As mentioned before, the main motivation for Chinese students to learn English is to pass the examination, whether it is the collar entry is also known also as Gaokao or the international exam, but this motivation is also the same reason for the students' anxiety, which is pre or poor examinations anxiety. On the other hand, others think that using apps can reduce anxiety because they do not worry about the teachers and classmates when they are learning. Therefore, it can be seen that the common anxiety students who think mobile apps can reduce anxiety comes from the situation where they are. For example, the anxiety they feel when answer the question in class. Moreover, we also found out that there are certain differences between mainland students and Hong Kong students. Respondents in Hong Kong felt more anxious about the external environment, including teachers' roll call and evaluations of others, than about the English test. Including the teacher's roll call, the environmental of others, then about the, however, their anxiety may fall more in cultural aspects. Hong Kong students are more concerned about the views on behaviors of others. Next. In the first questions is about the confidence. Most of them believe apps can improve their confidence in English learning because they can get promotions and progress. After using the apps, they can instantly see the result of their effort and bring a sense of achievement and satisfaction to them, improving their self-confidence. Finally, we want to know about the relationship between the apps and the effort that the people can make in learning. The question is compared with class teachers as following. We found out that we have a clear belief in learning English. Interview with positive belief indicated they trust in the app's functions, while those with negative belief disagree. In addition, interviews who disagree were more concerned about the age and the environment. Classroom teaching is more instructive and efficient for a younger age group. Yeah, let's move to the next part.
Okay, I will give the very short conclusion about our study, and our strength is we use the mixed method design, which help us to have in-depth understand about university students in Hong Kong and mainland China use mobile app to learn English and their psychological effects. And our limitation is the sample size. The sample size is small and hard to generalization, but our findings would like to suggest teachers can use mobile app as tool to facilitate students' learning process. And for the app designers need to catch to the needs of students to adjust and design programs that can attract them and assist them in enhance their interest, motivation, confidence, and mindsets in learning process. And that is all of our presentation, and this is the reference page. And our team is many thanks for Xu Yue and Michael Lang help us to do the data collection. And if you guys have the future questions, please feel free to contact me. And thanks for your listening.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation. Azra Hocam has a question for you. She wants to know how you collected dominant themes in your qualitative data gathering.
Okay. Actually, the qualitative part of our study, we collect the data face-to-face. We assess to the students studying in mainland China and Hong Kong. We conducted the qualitative data collection face-to-face, no also the internet or online. So thank you.
Okay, so Azra, that answers your question, I believe. There's no online tool, so they did it face-to-face.